What is up, guys? It's me, Absolute Habibi, today bringing another tier list just because you guys like them so much. And today we're doing Formable Nations. We are only doing formable nations that are not colonial nations and not reformable nations. I'll be having two separate videos for those. So if you would like to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe. With today's video, I tried to group all of the countries to countries that are kind of near each other somewhat. However, yeah, with that being said, let's get right into it. So right away, we're going to put Algeria and Tripoli both in F tier. Forming these nations gives no missions, gives no ideas, gives no events. The only thing that it does give you is some claims that you most likely will already have. However, they can be used as an intermediary state if you're trying to form like an Italian minor into another Italian minor. Let's say you're Sardinia Piedmont and you want to form two Sicilies. You cannot culture shift to another Italian nation. So what you can do is you can culture shift to, let's say, Tripolitan or Algerian, and then form one of these nations, and then culture shift again back to Neapolitan or Sicilian to form the two Sicilies. So that's the only case where I can see these nations being formed. I'm going to put Egypt in the same class, especially since it also takes Admin Tech 20. I really wish that they would add some flavor to these countries, but since no one really forms them, I understand. However, Egypt can be useful to go around some multiplayer rules. If you make a diplomacy as Mamluks with the Ottoman player, so you guys don't want to war each other, but you can't ally each other because the most multiplayer rules won't allow it. You can say, hey, we won't ally each other, we won't fight each other, but when I get Admin Tech 20, I'll form Egypt and we'll ally each other. That's the only time I can see the Egypt being formed. Next, Andalusia. We're going to go straight up into S tier. Amazing ideas, amazing events, and you also get holy orders, even if you're not an Iberian nation. So if you form this nation as Morocco or Tunis, you still get holy orders, which is an Iberian-only thing. Next, we get Arabia. I'm going to put this in C tier. I would put this higher up, but it is an endgame tag that gives no unique government type, actually takes away unique government types in some cases. Actually, I'm going to demote it for D just for that reason. No missions, no events. This is a nation that they should actually add some flavor to compared to these other ones in the bottom. Jerusalem, this is an S tier nation with their new mission tree. You have a very flavorful mission tree, as well as a nice events that pop up, while as you reconquer the Middle East. They also get a unique government type, which is the Crusader state monarchy. Unlike Crusader state theocracy, you can still do PUs. While also getting the free CB on all heretics and heathens without having religious ideas, as well as getting higher manpower recovery speed. For that reason, it gets S. Next is a Golden Horde. This is a nation that I have a guide on, and I will put it in S because it gives you one of the best world-conquering ideas. For not only that, since you are a horde, with the idea set you get from Golden Horde, you can actually conquer the world by 1600. Armenia, this is a C just because there is some flavor to this nation. There's also some roleplay aspect to it, and it has some difficulty just in its formation, just because there's no other Christians around while you're trying to do this. So it could be a fun campaign, and for that reason, it gets a C. Next, S Room. This gets an S tier because it gives you the Ottoman government type. Okay, so usually there's no way to form the Ottomans. But if you want the Ottoman government type and you're Sunni, then the best way to do that is to conquer the required lands for Rum and culture shift to Turkish. Once you do that, you can form Rum. You get nice ideas comparable to Ottoman ideas, as well as the Ottoman government type. So if you're Mamluks and you want a better government type, you can go when you form Rum, you'll get an Ottoman government type. So for that reason, they get S. Next, Bukhara. This is an F tier simply because it removes your horde. I guess it could be useful in the late game. However, there's other nations you can form or to deal with this. But if you just you can form it super easily as nations like Uzbek, but as soon as you form it, you lose your horde special government. So for that reason, it gets F. The next country is Mongol Empire, and this country, honestly, on paper deserves an S. However, it requires a lot of land to form, and by the time you form it, you're already in such a dominant position that its unique government type will help you, but it's not like game breaking. So for that reason, Mongol Empire gets an A. Next, Yuan. This is an S tier nation to form. Again, it does require a considerable amount of land to form, but not as much as the Mongol Empire. Not even close to as much as the Mongol Empire. And you can form it in like the first 50 years as Oirat, which is insane considering that Yuan has probably the best world conquest ideas out there. They have both admin efficiency and core cost reduction in their idea group. If I'm not wrong, I believe they're the only idea group that has both, which will mean that coring is going to be absolutely super cheap, especially once you reach the age of absolutism, if you have already not completed your world conquest by then. Ilkhanate. This nation is another F tier nation. Their ideas are just so bad compared to whoever you're going to form them from. If you're forming them from Uzbek, you're giving up core cost reduction. If you're making it from Kazan or Nogai, again, you're losing your horde ideas, which gives you core cost reduction. For that reason, I put them in F tier. Next, Mughals. This is an S tier formable nation. Actually, it should be on its own tier, on its own SS tier, just because it's not that hard to form as some countries like Timurids, for example. And it has one of the best, actually just the best unique government type of the culture assimilation. You no longer have to worry about cultures once you form the Mughals, which is super nice when you're doing a world conquest, because as soon as you assimilate an entire culture or conquer an entire culture, they're assimilated in your government. And not only that, they give you a bonus that's unique to their culture type. So for that reason, they should be on their own tier, SS tier. Bharat. This is an A tier, just because I can't put it on the same tier as these other nations. They have good ideas, they have good events, they have good missions. However, in India, you will be forming them. You could form them pretty considerably fast, like as a country as Vijayanagar, but at the same time, it's not on the same level as our S tier civilizations. And I'm gonna put Hindustan up there as well for the same reasons. They're very similar to each other. Next, we have Punjab, which is going to be another A-tier formable nation. You don't need much to form them. However, you do need to wait for some specific events to fire, as you do have to wait for the Sikhism religion to spawn. Looking at their events, they do have some interesting events that do taper off around the late 1600s. So I would recommend shifting to another nation after the late 1600s if you're planning on playing till the end game date. Next formable nation that we have is Maritas, which is a country of the Marathi culture, which you won't be forming this as any of the major Indians unless you culture shift. And actually looking at their ideas, in some scenarios, it might be worth it. This country has a core cost reduction, as well as the unique government reform progress. Usually I would say that idea is meh, but ever since the last Emperor DLC patch, since you can use government reform progress to give you more governing capacity, I think that idea is actually more useful than you think. So for that reason, I'm going to put it in A tier. The next country on this list is Nagpur, which I'm going to put on B tier because this nation is usually formed by the nation of Orissa. If you put both of their nations' ideas side by side, you'll see that Orissa's ideas are more economically focused, while Nagpur's ideas are more around conquering focused. However, they don't have a core cost reduction idea, which would have pumped them straight up into A. But they do have a national unrest as well as unjustified demand. So more focus around conquering. Next, we have Rajputana, which is going to be an A-tier formable nation. They are fun, don't get me wrong. They have a lot of flavor to them, surprisingly. A lot of the Indian nations from the Dharma DLC have a lot of flavor in them. But this nation, in terms of formables, I put it in the A tier because it does not have a unique government type. It has pretty nice ideas that are focused around conquering and world conquest. And you could argue that the Miwar ideas, which is the country that will form Rajputana 99% of the time, are better militaristically. And that I would agree. I would say if you're in a multiplayer lobby, you would stay with the Mawar ideas. But if you're in single player, Rajputana is the way to go, as it will make conquering easier. The Khan, another Indian group, but it requires a considerable amount of land in order to form, and it's more focused around administration versus conquering or military or anything like that. And if you're looking for, I guess, an administrative Indian game, they're the way to go. But I really don't really see much use cases for forming the Khan, especially when with just a couple more provinces, you can form Hindustan or Bharat, which in my opinion are better. Next on the list is Nepal. I'm going to put these guys in A tier. They have really strong ideas, and it's very easy to form. You only need like 4 provinces to form this nation, and you get some pretty nice claims. Just a little heads up, if you plan on doing a Gorkha into Nepal run, just remember your early game, you're going to be hella poor just because your land is pretty crappy and there's like no trade in the node that you start in. Spain. This is a nation that gets an A. First of all, forming it, you can form this nation diplomatically, which saves you a lot of diplo points or admin points, however way you look at it. It is an endgame tag, so forming Spain means you cannot form any other nation except for the Holy Roman Empire or the Roman Empire, since those are exceptions for the country of Spain. Yeah, they have a lot of events associated with them. If they had their own unique government, I don't know how that would work, but something like the Austrian unique government, I would easily bump this up to S tier. Next, Netherlands. I'm going to put these guys in S just because forming Netherlands gives you some insane events. I recommend looking at the Netherlands wiki page and looking at the events tab. You look through that and you're going to be like, wait, what? One of the events just straight up gives you a restoration of the Union CB on Great Britain. Some events give you some crazy bonuses to your provinces that last till the end of the game. Some events give you claims on colonial areas in Indonesia and in West Africa. And not only that, you get the statists versus royalists government type. Basically off the bat for free, which allows you to PU while also being able to shift who your leader is by using the statists versus royalists mechanic. Next on the list, we have Bavaria. A surprise for me, but you basically all you have to do to form Bavaria is have the subjects that own the Bavarian provinces. So you can just click a decision and suddenly they are full chord provinces that you didn't have to spend any monarch points to do. Not only that, the Bavarian mission tree is pretty nice and also has many permanent bonuses. Next we have Franconia, which I'm going to put into C tier just compared to the other German minor nations that you can form. This one is heavily lacking, and I'm gonna put Swabia in the same tier for the same reason. Their ideas are meh, and their missions are essentially the same missions that you have as the nation that you formed them as, and I don't see much flavor, and there's also no listed events for either one of these nations. I'm not sure if that's true. I haven't played as either one, but if that is the case, they definitely deserve the ranking of C. And then Westphalia, I'm going to even put it down in D because this is a decentralized nation. When you form it, you have monthly autonomy gain, not monthly autonomy loss in your provinces. So for that reason, this gets a D, while Hanover gets a B. While it doesn't have a unique mission tree, it does have one of the best ideas out of these last 4 that we just looked at, and could be a really fun run, especially if you're starting as a country like Brunswick or even Dithmarschen. Quick reminder, though, for all of the German minors, as well as Prussia, you cannot form other German minors after you form these German minor nations, except Prussia has an exception. So all of these nations, if you switch to Saxon culture, so let's say if you made Bavaria, you can switch to Prussia if you switch to Saxon culture or Prussian culture. However, if you form Prussia or any of these other nations, you cannot form any of these nations again. So like if you form Prussia, you cannot form Swabia, you cannot form Bavaria, you cannot form Hanover, you cannot form Franconia. And if you form Franconia, you can't form Swabia, you can't form Hanover, you can't form Bavaria, etc. And you cannot reform Austria, and you cannot use an intermediary state like the Italian minors. So with the Italian minors, you can use an intermediary state to go from two Sicilies to Sardinia, Piedmont, but you cannot do that with the German nations. As soon as you form a German minor, you cannot form any of the other ones except for Prussia. Next is Lotharingia. This is a S-tier civ. This nation is one of the best ideas in Europe to do a world conquest, especially as a Burgundy world conquest, as getting Lotharingia, the requirements for it can be achieved through your mission tree, which is very fun, to say the least. But because of their ideas, the administrative cost reduction makes them one of the best European formable nations to form. Next, Pomerania. This is going to go down into C tier. They don't have any unique missions compared to the nations that you form them with. And it seems like you're going to form Prussia anyways. And it seems like you're going to be playing Brandenburg with extra steps. Next on the list is Prussia, which is going to go straight up in S tier. Not only do you get some nice ideas, you get nice missions, you get nice events, you also have a unique government type. And because of that, it clearly deserves an S, since it's one of the best government types for tall players. However, if you don't want to go tall Prussia, which is totally fine, you're going for very wide Prussia, or like you're trying to form Germany fast, all you have to do is use 50 government reform progress, and you can just switch to another monarchy type, removing the governing capacity malice that you get from using the Prussian monarchy type. Next, Silesia. I'm going to put this in D. I don't know why you're doing a Silesia campaign. I guess for roleplay reasons, but there's like nothing related to this country in terms of events, missions. And I'm not even sure their ideas are... Yeah, I think their ideas are just the same as the nations you form them as. So I guess you get a new color. Next is Kurland, which I'm going to put into D tier. This is supposed to be like the Prussia for Livonian order. Once you become Protestant, you can form Kurland. However, you're essentially trading your religious ideas, Livonian order religious ideas, for trade ideas. So Livonian order has a mix of militaristic and religious ideas in their idea set, while Kurland has a mix of military and trade ideas. So I guess if you're playing Livonian order and you want to play like a more money-oriented game, a Baltic Sea-oriented game, I guess you could do that. However, forming Kurland, I believe, stops you from being able to get the Baltic Crusader achievement. Next on the list is Poland, Lithuania. I'm going to put this in B tier, and this would get an A tier just because it saves you a lot, just like Spain. However, it's an endgame tag, which leaves you with not much to do after like the 1600s. You finish your mission tree in the first 100 to 200 years as Poland. You don't get a new mission tree from forming the PLC, and you also get the negative events that are associated with the Commonwealth during the age of absolutism. Next on the list is Dalmatia. This is a surprise to be sure, but I'm going to put them in B tier, close to A tier. Just the reason why they don't get A tier is because they don't have like a nice mission set, but this is a surprise to be sure, but these guys have national unrest. They have trade ideas, naval ideas, as well as core cost reduction inside their idea set. So if you're looking for a wide naval game, these guys are actually pretty good to play. And if you're a country like Venice, it's not that hard to culture shift and form Dalmatia and get their nice idea set compared to the Venetian ideas. So for that reason, they get B. Next is Romania. This is going to get a B tier simply because their ideas are pretty good. However, their mission tree is the same exact mission tree as Wallachia and Moldova, the two countries that you're most likely to form Romania as. But they do make for a fun campaign, and they do have nice militaristic ideas, which are very useful considering your position. Great Britain, this is an S tier government. You have, again, it's another country like Netherlands. England already has its unique government type right off the bat. However, Great Britain, it has, again, an insane amount of events to it, and also has an entire DLC associated with Great Britain. Which was the DLC that included Innovationists. I'm sorry, I'm not remembering it on top of my head. But that DLC was completely focused around the British Isles. And for that reason, Great Britain benefited a lot from it. And not only that, Great Britain has one of the most intensive mission trees in the game. Next is Ireland. These guys are going to get an A. Their idea set was actually one of the biggest surprise to me. They have -2 national unrest. They have discipline. They have shock reduction. So they have a very military focused set, as well as some nice ideas if you're going wide. For that reason, they get an A. Next on the list is Greece, which I would give an F. However, they do have core cost reduction in their ambition. I have 2 of them for some reason, but I'm going to put both of them in D. This nation is really hard to form, first of all. I think the easiest way to form it is by playing someone who isn't Greek at all, and then conquering the required provinces and then culture shifting to Greek. The thing is, a Greek playthrough will always pale in comparison to Byzantium. And the only reason why I see people ever playing this nation is if they're going for the Greek achievement, which requires you to, which is called It's All Greek to Me, which requires you to own 5 provinces that are considerably spread out. Next is Iceland. I'm going to put this in F tier just because to form it, you need to give away territory, which makes sense because large nations shouldn't be able to form Iceland. However, if you're losing all of your land just to move to 3 development provinces, so total of 6 development, you're probably pretty crazy. And for that reason, I probably would be your friend. However, they do get an F from me. Scandinavia, this is another F tier for me, simply for the fact that it stops you from getting events. If you're Danish, you stop getting unique Danish events once you form Scandinavia. If you're Swedish, you stop getting unique Swedish events if you form Scandinavia. What's up with that paradox? The next is Tuscany. This nation, I said some bad things about it in my most fun video. However, after reconsidering it and talking to people in my community, I am going to say this is a B tier. The Florence Ideas allows you to stay Republic. If you want to stay a Republic, you can. The mission tree, I should say. It's actually a pretty decent Italian minor. However, its counterpart, Sardinia Piedmont, this is going to be an S tier from both of these for separate reasons. 2 Sicilies, because their idea set is really great and you don't require that much land to form them. So for example, if you're Naples, you conquer a little bit of land and boom, that's it. You can form 2 Sicilies. And now you have core cost reduction in the very early game. Compared to Sardinia Piedmont, whose mission tree is one of the nicest mission trees that I've seen. And not only that, not only does it include permanent bonuses, it also includes a 5% admin efficiency bonus, which is very useful, especially since you're most likely going to form Italy, which is another S tier. Both of these nations are great for forming Italy and give you a nice stepping stone in order to form Italy. Next is Russia. This is going to be another S tier government country to form. Not only do you get the unique government, you also get probably the best idea set in the group with the Siberian frontier. You can basically colonize all of Asia, all of the uncolonized provinces in Asia in the matter of 100 to 200 years, which is absolutely insane, especially since it costs you no money, just costs you Diplo power. And Ruthenia is another S tier civ as long as you're Orthodox. Ruthenia is an S tier government to form if you're Orthodox, because you have to be Orthodox in order to get the unique Russian Tsar government type. If you're not doing that, I'm not sure why you're forming Ruthenia. That's one of their strongest bonuses. If you're forming Ruthenia as a country like Poland, you're going to be one of the strongest nations in the game. If you're playing, for example, in a multiplayer server, you're going to be probably one of the strongest nations in the game. However, I do recommend waiting until after the Age of Reformation, or at least midway through the Age of Reformation, so you can get the Polish unique bonus of goods produced modifier, which will help your economy a lot. Next on the list is Germany. This nation, I'm struggling a little bit to put it in S tier, just because you're probably going to form it way later compared to the other nations that we have in S tier, which are all nations that you can form pretty considerably fast, relatively to compare to some of them in A tier. Yeah, but their government, once you do form them, they do have a nice government type, as well as their missions that give them claims on almost all of Europe. And the Holy Roman Empire, I'm going to put it in the same reason as Germany. You most likely are like Holy Roman Empire. Every time I formed it, it's in the last like 20 years of the game, because you're using the vassal swarm. So for that reason, I have to put it in A, and I can't put it in S, because you don't really see these two countries being rushed to form. Maybe Germany, but not Holy Roman Empire. Next, we have the Roman Empire, which I'm actually going to put into B. This, unfortunately, does not have its own missions. It takes an insane amount of land to form. You don't just need like certain provinces. You need an entire areas. You need the entire area of Iberia. You need the entire area of Italy. You need the entire area of France. You need like a bunch of land in Anatolia. And most of the time when you're forming this nation, it's again like the Holy Roman Empire, where you're forming it way late. However, unlike the Holy Roman Empire, you don't have any unique missions. And on top of that, there's way too many videos of on YouTube of people forming the Roman Empire with weird nations like Finland or something. Next on the list is Inca, which is actually a surprising A for me, mostly because unlike Maya, it doesn't require you to reform your religion in order to form. It gives you a lot of claims, so if there are already colonial nations nearby, you're going to have claims on them for free, and it doesn't require that many provinces to form, and once you form it, you're pretty much the dominant power in South America, or you should be at least. For that reason, they get an A. Next is Maya, which I'm going to put in B, just because same reason as Inca. However, there's no achievement associated with Maya except for forming Maya as Huasatec, which is the hardest Mayan nation to form. Maya, which I hate to see. I really want to see the Mesoamericans and also Incan nations to get their own mission trees, and I'm really upset that none of them have like cool missions. Like the only missions they have that are unique are 3 missions to conquer Europe. But yeah, for that reason they get a B. Next, we have Japan. This nation's going to get an A because it gets nice events. It has a unique government type, as well as having many unique achievements to accomplish with Japan. There's also many ways you can form Japan, and even if you want to keep your dynamo ideas, you can, and you'll still get a pretty nice playthrough as Japan. Next on the list is Malaya, which I'm actually going to put into C tier. I bet this is going to be an S or an A tier in the next patch. But as it stands right now in the current state of the game, this is a C tier because their ideas are somewhat mediocre. They're focused around colonizing, trade, and navy, which makes sense for where they are. However, from the one time that I did form Malaya, I found myself just like kind of bored for a bit and feeling like, what is there next to do? For that reason, gets a C. Next is Shan. This country is just straight up F tier. I believe that it will go up as well. Same thing as Malaya, since the next patch is focused around Southeast Asia. However, I don't see any reason to form this nation in the current state of the game. Next is Manchu. This is an S tier civ. You get these insane ideas that will help you in your war against Ming and also conquering. And also, while we're at it, I'll put Qing in A because forming Xing removes your horde government type. However, you do have unique events related to Xing as well as some cool dynamics to play with as Xing. So I'm going to keep them an A, while Manchu stays an S because it's the country. You will stay as Manchu as you conquer the world. You won't form Xing. But yeah, let's go on to the next. And the next is Tibet. And honestly, I'm putting this in S ever since my last campaign. And this actually makes a lot of sense to me because Flowori was trying to go for like this insane France game where he did, if you guys know who Flowori is, he's like this insane EU4 player. He basically snaked to Tibet in order to culture shift and religiously shift to Vajrayana as well as Tibet in order to form Tibet. And I was like, man, why is this guy doing that? And that's because of a certain mission in this tree that can turn you into a horde as any nation. You can be literally any nation in the game that is not an endgame tag. If you get Tibetan culture and you get Vajrayana religion, you can form Tibet and become a horde. As you saw in my campaign, playing my culture shifting campaign as Provence, I formed Tibet at some point, and then I went through the mission tree, and you have a decision that lets you basically turn into a horde while keeping all of your government reform progress, which is insane, especially if you're trying to go for some like weird playthrough where you start as some other nation that isn't a horde, then you snake to Tibet and you do the culture shift, you do the religious shift, and then now you can become a horde. That's really unique. Out of all of the countries, there's not any that lets you through the missions just become a horde. For that reason, they get an S tier. I also forgot to mention that once you become a horde, you can form the Mongol Empire. So if you wanted to go for like some crazy, like, I don't know, Nepal into Mongol Empire, Nepal, Tibet to Mongol Empire, you actually can. Yeah. Next is Sokoto, F. Okay, this nation, first of all, requires you to be past 1700. Next, it requires chance to form, so you can't just like for sure get it, and most likely by the time you form it, it's the last 20 years. And on top of that, they don't even have that good of religious ideas. They're supposed to be like a religious nation in Africa, right? But they don't have that good of religious ideas. Their ideas set is actually pretty mediocre, and forming them actually decreases your stability, and for that reason they get an F. Here's my tier list of formable nations. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know down below in the comments. That's it for this video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.